Hi, this is James here with your Oracle Outlook for the week starting January the 14th, 2019. I got the year right this week, so we're off to a great start. I want to thank you for tuning in and sharing the space here with me for this week's weekly reading. I'm continuing my theme of doing things differently because it's a new year, right? Time to do new and different things. So I got some wonderful feedback from you all last week because in last week's video you may remember that I was only present, meaning you're looking at my face now, at the beginning and the end of the video. And so I'm continuing with that because I got a lot of positive feedback about that. Some people really enjoyed getting a closer look at the cards on the table, so I'm going to do that once again this week. But the old way is not disappearing for good. For those of you who did like that way of having the readings presented, that is not going away. I will be doing that on and off throughout this year, but I'm trying to just mix it up and keeping things interesting for both myself and for you. So again, we're going to be taking a look at the cards on the table for this week's reading. I'm also doing something that I've never done. Well, maybe in a way, I'm going to have to rephrase that for this week. So this actually is a viewer requested video because I've had a viewer ask me about incorporating Lenormand and Tarot together in the same reading. So this viewer was inspired by a book by Rana George, and so those of you who work with Lenormand are probably very familiar with the book. It is called The Essential Lenormand, and in that book, Rana George, towards the end of the book, in one of the appendices, talks about blending Lenormand and Tarot in specific ways. And so this person was inspired based on one of the ways that Rana George uses Lenormand and Tarot and asked me if I would present a video based on that presentation. So the interesting thing about it is that I personally don't tend to blend oracles or systems when I'm doing readings. Usually if I'm working with tarot, it's a straight up tarot reading. If I'm working with Lenormand or Kipper or playing cards, it's straight up just that one system. I usually don't blend systems. So this was an interesting proposition for me because I don't do it. So that little bit about a rephrase that I talked about. As I was saying, while I never do it, in the past, when I first started getting into Lenormand and these YouTube videos, I did what I called a Lenormand and Tarot tag team reading. So where in the first part of the reading, I did a Lenormand reading, and then based on the cards that presented themselves in the Lenormand line, going with the playing card inserts, I equated them to tarot cards. So the follow-up was using those same playing card inserts, but I just used the tarot correspondences to that. So that was the closest thing that I got to blending systems, and that just came to me in the moment when I said that I had never worked with oracles together or blending them in the same reading, so I had to kind of rephrase that. So the decks that are going to be assisting me for this week's reading, I have two, of course. So for the Lenormand part of the reading, I am working with my absolute favorite Lenormand deck. This is literally my working Lenormand deck. When I work with clients, this is like my go-to. It is Fanu's Lilac Dondorf. I just love it. I can't say enough wonderful things about it. So that is going to be the Lenormand part of this week's reading. For the tarot, I am using a deck that I have been using personally for my clients, but I have never used it in this space, so I'm very excited about it. So the deck is Pam's Vintage Tarot, and there is a method to my madness for this particular deck. I'm using it because of its functionality in terms of size. It is literally the same size as Lenormand cards. So it's wonderful for my clients to shuffle because I like to have them shuffle the cards, so it's wonderful for them to shuffle. But because I'm working with two systems this week, both of them are going to be the same size, and so it's going to be very easy to lay them all out on the table together at one time. So again, I'm working with Fanu's Lilac Dondorf and Pam's Vintage Tarot, and I will be leaving information about both decks in the description box below in case you want to learn more about them. So now that I've gone on about how this week's reading is going to go, let's actually get to the table and get this thing going. And here we are with the Lenormand cards on the table for the first part of this week's reading. So I'm going to go ahead and take the deck in hand and shuffle the cards. And as I shuffle the cards, I'm focusing on my usual intention for these weekly general readings. And that is, we're looking for the information, the guidance, the advice that is going to be helpful and beneficial to us as we move through the upcoming week. I'm feeling that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. And now I'm going to fan out the cards. And now I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. 2, 3, 4, and we're looking for the final card. Card 5. And those are the 5 cards. So now I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up and we'll put that to one side. Now I'm just going to take a moment to make sure that all the cards are in view. There we go. Okay, I like that. All right. So when I work with a line of 5, I always look at the middle card. For me, the middle card represents the focus for the week ahead or a central issue. So for the card we have, okay, this is great. So here we have the stork card. So my keywords for stork are change and improvement. So there's a focus for us this week on changing something and changing something for the better, because the change usually is a positive change. So change for the better. Now, of course, keep in mind that that could be influenced by surrounding cards, but as a card by itself, stork usually represents change for the better. So positive change and improvement. Now, going with the playing card aspect, we have the Queen of Hearts. So we have another additional meaning where there could be a situation that involves a woman, that she plays a central role or part in whatever the other cards are going to be talking about this week. Now, for me, the Queen of Hearts can represent a woman, of course, but she is also a married woman. So this could be somebody who's married, somebody who is a wife and mother. So somebody who is married, not only married, but also has children. Now, to be very interesting to see, if we go with the idea that this represents a person, then she's looking at these cards to the left. So this is what's before her, and these cards are behind her. So we will be looking at this card from 2 aspects, something having to do with change and improvement as a focus. And I'm going to go more with that as a general for all of us, because there's always room for change, and we can always improve on something. So that would be a general message for all of us. But for some people, there may be a situation that involves a woman. She may play a central role or part, and she may be married, and not only married, but married with children, right? So that is the focus. Then what I do with a line of 5, I like to look at the cards that are flanking it, because that may be more, telling us more, I should say, about the situation at hand. So taking a look at the card on the left, we have ship, okay, and then the card behind stork is moon. Okay, so here we have a couple of things that may be going on. So if I go with the card on the left, ship is a card that can represent travel. That's my keyword meaning for it, but it can also represent a situation that is progressing, something that's advancing, something that's moving forward, right? It could also be having to do with a venture, if we go with the idea that this may be a business or work-related type situation, and this may be a venture or a commercial venture. Going with the idea that Lenormand can be quite liberal, this could actually have to do with travel overseas, you know, something having to do with foreign, something foreign, because it usually represents overseas and traveling abroad. So for some people, if we go with the idea that this is about travel, there may be some sort of change about travel plans, because this literally could represent travel is changing or travel is improving. If we go with the idea for some people that this is about a commercial venture, then this could be, a venture changes or a venture improves. Right? So if we go with the idea that this is about metaphorically making some progress, then the progress that's being made is improving on something. It's changing it for the better. So I see that now if we go with the idea that this could represent a woman, then a woman is looking to the ship. So a woman may be looking forward to traveling. Or if it's describing her as a person, then ship can represent somebody who is foreign. So this could be a foreign woman or a woman overseas. And the other thing I wanted to point out, again, going with the idea that Lenormand is quite literal, ship could be a pun for shipping. If it doesn't represent an actual ship like a cruise or anything like that, then this could be a pun for a shipment or something being shipped. So if somebody is expecting something to arrive from overseas, there may be some sort of change with that. Because this could literally be read as a shipment is changing. So I'm seeing that. And another possibility could be that somebody may be considering the idea of moving. Stork, if we go with the idea that this is the focus, can represent movement. So sometimes it can represent a change in location. So somebody may be planning on or thinking about moving overseas. Right, so those are some possibilities with ship. Now on the other side of stork, we have moon. So for me, moon can represent career. That's my first keyword association with this. So there may be some sort of career change that somebody is thinking about embarking on. Right? If we go with the idea that stork represents change and improvement, then this could represent a career change. It could also represent somebody needing to do something regarding their reputation. So there may be a change in reputation. Right? And then the other thing here with moon, going with that, it can also represent recognition. So there may be somebody being given some kind of recognition, some kind of honor. And that may be, if there was some sort of improvement, maybe let's say here there is a commercial venture, there were some changes and improvements made, and as a result of this, then there's some sort of honor or recognition being given to either the person or persons who played a hand in making those changes and improvements. If we go with the idea that this represents a woman, so there may be a woman who is central to whatever these changes and improvements are, and as a result of that, she is the one who gets honored or recognized. So those are some possibilities with these cards. So now what I do is I take a look at the card on the far left. Opening line up, okay. So here we have Fox. So for me, Fox is a card that can represent a couple of things. My first go-to usually is this card can represent job or employment. So we have here, it matches what we have here with Moon. Remember, Moon is the career card. So here we have job and employment. So there's something for some people about moving forward, progression and advancement with one's job. This could also be like somebody is an employee, so this could be somebody who is working for someone else, but I also read Fox as self-employment. So it could be, if we go with the idea that Chip is talking about a commercial venture, then somebody may be deciding on doing their own thing, like self-employment moves forward, progression advancement, or self-employment venture moves forward. Right? It could also be somebody is thinking about maybe doing some business overseas, and that still would be keeping if they're self-employed. Now another possibility with fox, fox can also represent something that is wrong, something that is bad, or something that is some kind of mistake. So if we go with the idea that this is about a mistake, then that would make sense with stork being in the middle here about being change or improvement, because here we have a mistake that needs to be changed or improved, right? And here with ship, ship is a card that's moving away from fox and toward stork. So for some of us, we may be needing to take care of some kind of mistake or error, and we are taking the action step, which would be ship, on moving away from the mistake and towards changing and improving it. So I'm seeing those as possibilities there with fox. Again, fox is about job and employment. It could also be about self-employment. It can be about a mistake or an error or something that's wrong and needs to be corrected. Now another possibility, I'm just pointing this out, it can also be fox can represent being taken advantage of, being manipulated, conned, those kinds of things. That's the challenging aspect of fox. So again, we're moving away from this and towards something more positive. Right? For some people, they may need to be put on notice about a scam, some kind of scam that originated overseas. Because I'm seeing that like a foreign kind of scam. So those are some possibilities with fox. Now let's take a look at the other side of the line. And here we have key, okay. So key, for me, can represent something that's important, but it also represents an answer or solution, right? So there may be some sort of discovery. For me, key can represent something that is discovered or something that is revealed, because I tend to look at this as revelation. So there may be an important answer or solution that is either discovered or revealed. And then key can also represent getting to the truth of a matter or truth of a situation. Key represents something being unlocked. So it could just be a matter of that somebody needs to make some kind of change or improvement, going back to the focus here, maybe regarding their career, and it's important. Because the line here, these three cards here, represents a change in career is important, or a change in career is the answer, or a change in career is the solution. Now it could also be, if we go with the idea here that moon can also represent one's reputation, then it could be a change in one's reputation is important, right? And that would make sense if we go here with fox, maybe for the person who may be, you know, the type who takes advantage of other people, who kind of manipulates other people, things like that, then that would make sense here, because we're saying that needs to change. Like that ship has sailed, and now it's time to change your reputation because it's important. And it could also be, if we mirror the cards, then we have a mistake or some kind of error, fox, is discovered or revealed with key. Right? So for some people, again going with the idea that this is about focusing on something or changing something, then it would be as a result of discovering a mistake. That's where we need to make the change or the improvement. Now if we go with the idea here that this represents job and employment or self-employment, then we're saying here that it is important, that the job or the employment or the self-employment is important. Right? Another aspect of fox that's coming to me in the moment is that this card for me can represent independence and doing what we need to do to survive. So if we go with that, like independence is important, or independence is the answer. So for some people, they may be seeing some progress if they're setting the intention on wanting to become more independent, maybe more self-sufficient. kind of thing. And that would be a positive change, right? And it says here that change is recognized or change is honored. So for some people, it could just be an identity thing, like a self thing, a thing about your person that you're wanting to create some more independence on. It could be with your work that you want to create a greater sense of independence around, and that would make sense if maybe you're considering moving away from being an employee and wanting to be self-employed, meaning do your own thing, right? And what do you need to do in between to foster that change, right? And that would be the ship. So that's how I would look at the line. I'm thinking that the focus is on change and improvement, that there may be for some people something having to do with work, job, and employment, because we have Fox and career. But we also have maybe a change in one's personal reputation. But I also think too, like there's going to be a mistake or some kind of error that's going to be discovered, and we need to seek an answer to it. And with key at the end, I think the answer will be found. Right? So there's that. And again, for some people, there may be a woman who plays a part in that. You know, and again, I'm going to just put this out there that for some people, it's important to be very careful of any kind of activity that may be foreign or abroad from where you are, because there may be some sort of manipulation, con, scam, fraud attached to that. That will be revealed and discovered. So be very careful with that. So that is how I would look at the first part of this week's reading. And so now what we'll do is we'll look to tarot to give us a little more information about these cards. And now I have the tarot deck on the table to give us one of three possibilities for the cards that are going to be pulled. So the tarot can offer us advice for the cards that the Lenormand has been talking about to us, or it could give us something of an underlying reason for whatever the line is presenting to us, or it could be talking more about the mood or the atmosphere. So those are one of three possibilities I'll be looking at. Here I'm tending to go more maybe with the underlying reason or the underlying influences with what has been presented. So that will be what I'll probably be looking at as I take the deck in hand. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And just as I did with the Lenormand cards, I'm going to be shuffling. And the intention here is to give us additional information or insight with what has been presented so far with the Lenormand. And so what I like about this particular deck is that it matches the same size as the Lenormand cards that I've been using. So they will all fit nicely on the screen. Alright, I think that's good. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards. I'm going to do it differently than I did before. And now I'm going to fan them across. Alright, and now I'm looking for 3 cards in the fan. This will be card 1. Looking at this one for card 2. And I'm liking this one for card 3. So those are the 3 cards. So now I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up. And we'll put that to one side. Alright, and now I'm going to take these cards and move them down. Alright. So now I'm going to read the card straight across, starting with the card on the far left. And here we have the World card. Okay, so the World card can represent the successful completion of a cycle or a chapter or a phase in our lives. If you remember, the World card showed up in last week's Oracle Outlook because I used the Tarot de Marseille, and that was the final card in the line. So again, if we go with the idea that the focus here, the Lenormand card Stork, is on changing and improving something, then World card could represent something that we need to finalize or something that we need to bring to some kind of completion, right? This card can also represent success, so successfully completing that cycle, that chapter, that phase. So that's significant to point out. Another thing for me that the World card can represent is that for me this can represent one's career path. And so here we have that with Moon. Moon, remember, one of the meanings for moon can represent career. So we have, for some people, there's something about one's career. There may be a move connected to that because the World card can represent a move or a relocation. So we have that matching Stork. Another thing that we have matching for me when I talk about this idea about moving, for me, this card would represent, like, we're not just moving from one town to the next. Usually this could represent leaving one state, so we're moving from state to state, or going with ship. Ship can represent we're moving from country to country. So for some people, again, there may be a move here to consider, going with these two cards, but there may be something having to do with something foreign or something overseas, right? It could be that for some people, they may be embarking on something where it's like a whole new world is going to be opening up for them, because I'm hearing the Disney song A Whole New World. So I'm hearing that in my head. So for some people, this is about having your world open up. You've reached a certain chapter or phase in your life, and as a result of that chapter coming to its conclusion, a new chapter is opening up, but it's like a whole new world is opening up for you. So again, the World card can represent completing something successfully. It could represent one's career path, and it could also represent a move or a relocation, and usually implies some distance. So that is what I'm seeing with the World. And so I may get more information about that and come back to that, but that's what's coming to me in the moment. So now let's take a look at the middle card. The middle card is okay. So here we have, for some people, there is something going on with travel, because the Eight of Wands, for me, as a card in the middle, so this could be focusing on travel. So we have three cards that represent travel. We have the Ship card, we have the World card, and now we have the Eight of Wands. So for some people, there may be something about travel and travel plans, and that may be where the change comes in, or the change that needs to make, or something that's being improved on, right? So there is that. Now, this is also a work or career card, because this is from the Suit of Wands. The Suit of Wands for me can represent work or business. And then it's the 8. So the 8 for me can represent career. So we have another number that represents career. It can represent business. It can also represent the entrepreneur. So there is a reference now going back to Fox about either an employment issue or self-employment, right? So there is that to consider. Now, if we're talking about changes being made around travel, then the Eight of Wands is about getting things lined up, right? So it's a matter of organization. And so that could be in the specific sense around travel plans. It's about organizing something, or it could just be, generally speaking, there needs to be a focus on getting our lives organized, right? So this could be about organizing your life in a way that works for you, and maybe works better if we go with the idea that Stork is talking about change and improvement. So if we talk about the business of life, Eight of Wands, what do you need to focus on creating change around or improving that would make your life work better for you, right? So there is that to consider with the Eight of Wands. It can also represent, for some people, and this may be where the organization is key, going back to key, is because this can represent being busy. This card usually represents rapid growth and development, but usually having a lot of irons in the fire and being very busy. So it could just be in an everyday sense, everyday business of life sense. You're having to go to a lot of places. You know, I call this like the zipping around card. So we're zipping around, we're going from place to place, we're going here to there, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of activity maybe around that as well. So for some people specifically, there may be a huge thing having to do with career and business. There may be something having to do with travel. And in the more general sense, this could be about focusing on organizing our lives so that we can have some improvements made or some sort of positive change as a result, right? And I'm going to go back to this. This may be important for a woman in particular, a woman who's running a household, you know, being a wife and a mother. It could be, how can you make your everyday routine work better for you, especially if you have a lot going on. So I'm seeing that. And then going back to the Queen of Hearts for a moment, sometimes when this card comes up for me, it could represent messages around love. And so we may need to communicate to other people this week how much we care for them, how much we appreciate all the things that they do for us. Because this card can represent being cared for, being loved, and being appreciated. So how can we show people that we appreciate them this week? Especially, maybe for some people, especially either their wives or their mothers or the mother of their children. And then let's take a look at the final card. Oh, okay. So here we have the Tower. So the Tower is a card that can represent here. I'm going to go in the positive sense because the Tower can sometimes represent a challenging aspect where we're dealing with some sort of disruption, right? So that may be going back to, if we go with the challenging aspect of Fox, because that was the only other challenging card in the reading this week was Fox, and this idea about manipulation, being taken advantage of, maybe some sort of con or fraud, that kind of thing, or some sort of mistake, right? Then this card would represent that being exposed, because I usually represent or think of this being representative of things coming to light or things being exposed, right? So there's something that is going to be, it's like key in the sense where this could represent a revelation, right? So something being, we have two cards here that represent some kind of revelation, right? So that would be the challenging aspect. Again, going with the idea here that for some people this could be about independence and creating some work or energy around becoming more independent, right? Then this card would be about liberation. This card would be about breaking free from something, liberating yourself from something, that kind of thing. So this would be, how can you liberate yourself or free yourself up from the things that aren't working for you? If we go with the idea this is about putting energy into creating some kind of change or improvement, how can you break away from those things that aren't working for you? Right, because this card could represent breaking away, breaking free, right? If we go with the idea that we're putting energy into creating change and improvement, then in the positive sense, a Tower card for me can represent brainstorming. And I get that from the lightning. This usually represents a flash of insight or a sudden flash of clarity. And then the crown at the top of the building coming off can represent one's crown chakra. So this could just be creating the space to be open and receptive to sudden ideas, sudden inspiration, sudden insight. It's almost like saying, like, we could get an idea, and that would be, again, going back to key about answers or solutions, you know, being discovered or revealed. That could be mind-blowing, mind-blowing, right? So that's how I'd see that. So it's very important to note here that 2 of the 3 cards are major arcana cards. So major arcana cards for me carry more weight. They usually represent important issues or events, or something that is designed for our spiritual or personal growth and development. And both the World card and the Tower card can represent something coming to some kind of end. Now, if I go with the maybe more spiritual implication here, that whatever this is talking about for some people, it could just be a matter of a new level of awareness with the world. And then the Tower can represent like a wake-up call. So it's like a wake-up call, an awakening, something of that nature. So for some people, they may be moving through a process or an experience this week that's kind of like a wake-up call. And it may be, if this card is showing up as a wake-up call, then that may be reinforcing this idea of getting to the place where we suddenly realize that something needs to change and something needs to improve. Now, the one last thing I will do is I'm going to move these cards over, and I'm going to draw another card, because the world, the figure in the world, is looking to a space where there's no card. So I want to know more about that. So I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up, and I'm going to shuffle the cards. And I'll do this on camera so people can see that the cards are actually being shuffled. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead again and I'm going to cut the cards. And now you won't be able to see this part. I'm trying to do it in a way so you can actually see some of that. And so I'm focusing on what more do we need to know about the World card. What is the figure on the World card? What is she facing? What is she looking at? So now I'm going to fan the cards out and you can see my hand going by. So now I'm just looking for one card to place next to the World. So I've done that, and now I'm taking the deck up. So now here's the card I selected. So now I'm going to turn the card over. Okay, so this is interesting. One of the things, keeping with direction in mind, the figure on the World is looking to the left, so that could be the past as well. And so here we have a couple of possibilities. So for some people, this could be about completing something, bringing some sense of resolution to something having to do with the past, because the card here is the Six of Cups. And so the Six of Cups is known as the memories card. It's known as nostalgia. So I tend to look at it as the past. So for some of us, we may be revisiting the past in a way that allows us to bring the past to a close. This card here, in this particular case, could be about a situation that's coming full circle. So it's about, you know, going back to the past to resolve something. And it's like we've come back to the same point where we started in our journey, but we're different. We've changed, right? We have a new level of awareness about something that we experienced in the past. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. If we go here with the idea that this card can represent travel, keeping with the theme of a majority of the cards here, then for me, this card can represent making arrangements. So there may be some sort of change again around arrangements being made regarding travel, right? And again, with the Eight of Wands, it could be about like getting things lined up, organizing something, things of that nature. If we go with the idea that this is about career, then somebody may be either doing a couple of things. Either one, they're planning on making a career change and going back to something that they've done in the past. Because again, going with the idea that this is about the past. So this would be about revisiting the past, right? So maybe going back to something that we did prior, or somebody is specifically doing some work around children. So I'm seeing that as a possibility because the two figures on the card are children, right? Yeah, so I talked about revisiting the past, and as I'm looking at that, and I talked about children, somebody may be doing some work around a childhood issue and resolving that, or that they have a new level of awareness about something that they experienced in their childhood, because I'm seeing that as a possibility with these two cards. And then the last thing I want to say is somebody may be, we're talking about career here, may be planning on writing. I tend to look at this card, the Six of Cups, as a literary card. So somebody may be writing, and if that's the case, you may be writing something that is more autobiographical in nature, or something like a memoir. So somebody may be penning a biography or a memoir. And if that's the case, then here's another side note. If there are other people involved in your story, then you may want to reach out to them and communicate, because this card can represent communication. This would be the internet, email, text messaging, things of that nature, because you don't want to surprise them, right? Because depending on what your story is, there may be something that is very revealing, going with the idea that these two cards are about revelation. So there may be something very revealing, and you don't want to catch people by surprise, or you don't want to catch people off guard. So depending on the subject matter or what the story in question that you want to share, you may want to give people a heads up. So that is how I would look at the cards that are underlying our Lenormand cards. So this has been the Oracle Outlook for this week. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me as I try something new, something old and something new. So thank you for sharing space here with me. And as I wrap up, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a very tarot-tastic week. Take care.